Hello and welcome to another Global Monthly Video Hop. I'm Michelle from CNC Designs. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in New Zealand, and I'm here to show you how to make a project with this month's theme of monochrome. Now in the description below I will be listing links to all the other participants in the Global Monthly Video Hop. They're demonstrators from around the world showing you different ideas to use your Stampin' Up! Products for monochrome. So this time around I'm going to show you how to use the Feels Like Home stamp set to create a card in one color. This card here I made with the soft suede cards and ink using the Feels Like Home stamp set. And this stamp set you can get for free during celebration, and it's only available till the end of September. It's Stampin' Up! Celebration time until the end of September. And this set is on page 6. Here in New Zealand, if you purchase $110 worth of products, you can choose that stamp set as one of your free gifts. There are lots of different free gifts you can choose, and the prices vary depending on what country you're watching from. But this stamp set, I really like the image because it's a line art image and it's very detailed, but it stamps quite well in just one solid color. So you can stamp it and color it in as shown in that sample there, or you can do it in one color, which I'll be showing you today with the monochrome theme. You can also use it for background images. So like on the box with the paper there, they just use a few of the images in one color to make a monochrome background paper. So this here, I used most of the stamps from the set using the soft suede ink, and then I've also done some embossing in the background, and I've done some sponging as well on the inside. So I'm going to change it up slightly, and I'm going to work with Smoky Slate this time around. So what you need is this card uses an entire piece of colored cardstock. So you can do it in any color you want. Just choose one color to go with, and if you have the ink and that color cardstock, there's your monochrome theme. So this time I'm going to use Smoky Slate. So I've got my base cardstock, which is half of an A4 sheet of card, cut at 14.85. And then I scored it at 10.5 centimeters there and folded in half. And so the other half, I cut two pieces out. One piece is at the 14.85 and then at 10.5. And the other piece I cut down to 10 by 14.3. 14.3 by 10. So those two pieces will be used on the front. And then I have a piece for the inside, just basic white. It's at 14.3 by 10. So if you're in another country using imperial measurements, basically you want to use half of your piece of cardstock scored for your card base, and then the layers are just slightly smaller. So one of the layers, the frame that I'm going to make, is the exact same size as the front of your card. So if you need to make up your measurements, do that. And of course, I'm using the Smoky Slate ink and a few other embellishments, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So let's get everything out of the way, and we'll get started here. So first thing I want to do is with the largest piece of cardstock for your front, that's the same size as the front of the card, I'm going to cut a stitched rectangle out of the center. And I'm using the rectangle stitched framelit dies to do that. And the die I'm using, let's see, I think it's that one there. Yes. So the die I'm using to cut the center is the third down from the largest. So 3 steps down from the largest. Basically, if you're doing this with a different stamp set, you just want to make sure that your inside part is large enough for your stamped image to show through. So that's why I've chosen that. So I will die cut that. And then while I'm doing that, the other piece that's slightly smaller, I'm going to use the Brick and Mortar 3D embossing folder, and I'm going to emboss that to give me the brick background. So I will go do that, and then I'll show you the next part. Okay, so I've done used my die cut and emboss machine, and I've embossed the brick on the background here. Just a quick tip, when you're using your embossing folder, and it's directional like with the brick, just be aware of what you want your image to look like. Because I want the brick to be running this direction, I put it in that way. But if you want the brick to go a different direction, you would put it in sideways, and then the brick might look like it's going up a wall. The other thing too is you always put your folders in with the folded side first in the machine, and you never roll back on them. Just roll through one way, and then your folders will last a very long time. And then the other piece, I die cut the center out of it, and we will be using this to cut the image out, but that's my frame. So it's slightly off center. I didn't line it up very well, but that's okay. So we'll move that out of the way, and we'll do some stamping now. So with the frame, I'm just using this cute little image. It looks like ivy. I don't know if you can quite see it there. It looks like some type of ivy or flowers growing up the edge. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, but it fits perfectly along the edges here. So I'm just going to ink it up and see how it shows up. So even though this is the same exact color, you get, because the ink comes out slightly darker, you get a different look. And I'm just going to stamp this around the edges, and then I'll show you a close-up afterwards. It's kind of hard to stamp on camera. And don't worry if it's not even or it goes a bit wonky. That's okay. It's easier with the photopolymer stamps because you can see through them. But this is just kind of going to be a bit of a rustic card. And then I'm just going to flip it over. If I stamp the same way, I'm going to get the same direction on top and bottom. And the nice thing with a monochrome card, you can even do white on white, is it just brings a bit more interest. You might think everything would get washed out if you're just using one color, but it actually brings some interest in, especially if it shows up well on the cardstock you're using. Because you can see, I'll show you in a minute how well this shows up, the Smoky Slate on the Smoky Slate cardstock versus the soft suede. So you can choose your card. Like this, I could use any grays with it. I could change up and use another gray, and I would still be in the monochrome theme for the month. So that shows up quite nicely. Let's see if we can get to focus on. There we go. So that almost looks quite dark there compared to the browns. So it just depends on which color you're using. Now another tip too is if you don't have the right color to match the cardstock that you're using, you could just use Versamark. And I'll just quickly show you on the back how that's going to look. So Versamark is a watermark stamp pad. It's clear. We use it for our heat embossing to get the powders to stick. But if you use it just straight on the card, it gives you, as it says watermark, a impression, a darker impression, because it's bringing out just a clear imprint of the cardstock. So let's see if I can get this to show up. So it depends on how much ink I've got there. Okay. So if you have a look there, it almost looks like I stamped it with gray ink, but I've just stamped it with clear ink, so the Versamark ink. And that will dry, but we use that for embossing. So the difference there versus the difference there. So if you want a subtle look, you can use your Versamark to give you the same monochrome look, but with a bit of subtleness. Okay, so that's my frame there. We'll put that aside. Now this time around I decided to stamp on a piece of scrap that I can't thank you enough, so that's going to be the words I'm going to use. I've already pre-stamped that. And now I'm going to stamp the inside image. And that's why I said we will be using this. So this is small enough to have the image on. And I'm going to use my Stamparatus. The reason I'm using the Stamparatus is because there's a lot of detail in the stamp. And quite often when you have a detailed stamp, especially if it's not a photopolymer so you can't see through it, I might ink it up and stamp it and then find I've missed a few spots. Either I didn't put enough ink on it or enough pressure. So that's where the Stamparatus comes in handy. So I'm going to stamp it on my Stamparatus, and I've got a couple mini magnets that I use to hold it in place. So I made this little piece here out of, I'll just show you quickly, out of cardboard. I just did, I think it's about an inch, roughly about an inch wide, or what's that? 2.5 centimeters. So I just took a bit of scrap cardstock. You get that quite often with your designer series paper, and cut it about 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch strip down to make like this L shape. And I've got that in the corner. Now the reason for that is because when you are using your Stamparatus, see if you can see, when you place it down, you don't get as much pressure right at the edges. So if you have a stamp that's quite big that is in edges, quite often you don't get enough pressure because of the way the hinges are. You can't get it right to the center. You get good pressure everywhere else. So I made that so I can just pop my cardstock up there and then have my stamp slightly off the side, and then if there's something wrong I can just pop it right back in the same spot. And looking at this, I'm going to use another little magnet just to hold the cardstock in place, because sometimes the cardstock will stick when you do your Stamparatus. So I've already got these set up. They're just going to stamp inside there, and it doesn't matter where they stamp because I'm going to cut them out. So again, using my Smoky Slate ink, I'm just going to ink it up. Another tip when you're using your Stamparatus, have something underneath the plate when you ink it up, because it gives you a nice flat surface to ink on. And this ink pad I think is a bit dry, but it's also quite a detailed stamp. So some areas might look like they haven't been inked up, and they have actually been. So this, bring it over and just rub it. Don't just put a lot of pressure in one spot. Just rub back and forth all around all the edges. Now if I had it right here at the edge, I wouldn't be able to give enough pressure because of the hinges. That's why I've got it out to the side, and then pop it back up. And you can see there's some areas in the center that aren't very dark. Now I could go with that if I wanted that kind of a look, but I do want it to be a bit darker. So I'm just going to ink up a bit more, especially the areas that look like I missed out, like the bike. And because I haven't moved it, I can just stamp it right back in the same spot, and it will just stamp right over the same image. And that's the great thing about the Stamparatus. It's also fabulous if you have a large stamp like this one and you don't have a large enough block to use. You can use the Stamparatus. It's also good if you can't grip the larger blocks for small hands or if you have arthritis, because you don't need to grip anything. You just simply flip it over and press on it. There, I quite like that. The door is still a little light, but it gives it that kind of rustic look. So there we go. Okay, so now I'll move this out of the way. Just be aware that the Stamparatus has a very big magnet on it, so you can get, you don't want to put it near anything that will be affected by magnets. So I just want some scrap paper now, because I'm going to do some sponging. Okay, so I could just go with this look behind my frame, but it looks a bit plain in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a blending brush, and again, same ink, Smoky Slate, and rub on my Smoky Slate pad. Now it might look like there's not a lot on here. Oh, there's a bit more, but looks can be deceiving. So usually it's best if you come off from the side and bring it in, because you can always add more ink to what you're sponging on, but you can't take away. And keeping in mind that these edges won't be seen underneath there. Okay, so it's best just to press in there. I took a moment and I re-inked my ink pad because it was quite dry. And so, which is quite easy to do because you can just purchase the re-inkers. So I purchased a Smoky Slate re-inker, and it just has a little dropper. And you just simply put a few drops, just squish it to put a few drops onto all around your pad. And then you can let it soak in, or you can rub it in with the back of a teaspoon, metal teaspoon or plastic teaspoon, and then just rinse that off. So I've re-inked it because I wasn't getting enough ink on my blender brush. And so it's better to come in from the side, because that way it takes off a bit of the ink if you are worried about having too much come on there. Now it might not look like much from there, but you can see there's a little bit coming on there. And with an embossed folder that has raised areas, you can easily go back and forth. I'm doing a circular motion, but you can go back and forth or up and down just to catch some ink on the edges. And I like to hold the blending brush that way so I get more control. Or if you want a lighter touch, you can hold it from a distance. And then when you put it on there, you're not putting as much pressure. If you are sponging something up, keep in mind what's going to be on there. So the center is going to be covered, so if I get too much ink in the center, it won't bother me that much, but then I can work my way out. And this is just going to make the background, the embossed background, in this case it's bricks, but whatever embossed background you choose to use, it just makes it stand out that much more. And this also makes it kind of look like weathered bricks as well. So it's another way to get an interesting effect when you're using a monochrome theme. So just using one color. And so I've got some darker spots than others, but I don't mind that much. So it's giving it more of an aged look. I think that looks pretty good there. So as you can see, some areas, see if it'll focus, some areas are darker than others. And so that dark spot there won't matter so much because it's going to be covered with the brick edging. And so like on my original card, you can see the background does look a bit darker, simply because I had sponged that. And on something like here, you can just put it into the ink to get that outline. But see these gems there? I used for that one, I was doing soft suede. So I used the dark soft suede blend pen. And you can simply color onto your gems. So in this case, you can see I have different colors. Color on them while they're still on the sticky pad. And then you can get different colors. So I use this, and once you color it, if you want it darker, just continue to color. Because the blends is a permanent pen, so it will get you that permanent color. So that's how I ended up having these two pearlized gems that match the color as well. And then you can use one edge if you want to outline around the sentiments there. Now here I sponged on the inside because it just looked too bright with the white. But for this card, I think I might leave that because being gray, I think white will look just fine on the inside. I am going to stamp the little tulip pot for the inside. Now that I've re-inked it, it'll probably stamp quite well. Might be quite dark actually. So we'll just pop that there. Oh, see, it is too dark because it has been re-inked. So 2 sides to every piece of paper. So I'll just check. Should have done this before I re-inked it. So we'll just do quick. There. That time I didn't press as hard, so it didn't soak through. And I did it on the opposite side because that had already soaked through. So I've done it on that side. Because I didn't press so hard, it's not so bad. So that's the other thing too, is if you've re-inked your ink pad, you just need to be aware for some detailed stamps. It might come straight through. So a couple different tips on re-inkers and your ink pad. So that's going to go on the inside. And I am thinking I might put a little shade on it. Now I can just use what's left on the brush. It doesn't look like there's much, but there will be. And I can just rub a bit around the edges. And you'll see in a second that it is coming through. It doesn't quite look like it is coming through, but when I hold it up, you'll be able to see that some of the gray has come through. And without having to put more ink on the brush, it's helping to clean the brush, as well as then I don't have to worry about having any dark splotches going where I don't want them to be. Okay, so I'm not sure if this lighting is very good, but it just takes a bit of that whiteness off the edge. I'm just giving it kind of a curved corner, almost like you're looking through a lens, sort of an old-fashioned lens. Just smoking up the edges. Okay, so that's the inside. And we might as well pop that in. Now when I use my tear and tape, I like to do the tab way of doing things. Now you don't need to put a lot of tape. A lot of people put tape around the whole thing, but I create like a little tab on opposite sides. So it helps with placement, because if I don't place it right, then I can peel it up easily, because the only place that I'll be stuck is those 2 corners. So I'm just going to place it so I have about the same amount on all sides. And then just push down on the corners that were sticky. So if that was misplaced, I could easily pull up that little edge if I didn't like it. And it does actually look like it's crooked, so I will. So I can just pull that edge up and just bring it down, make it a bit straighter. And I just want a little bit of gray showing around all the corners. There we go. So because of that tab method, I could easily peel it up, and then you just grab your tab, pull it along, and then rub the tape down. And then rub the tape down. Okay. Now let's get the front done. So for the front, I'm going to stick this one down. And I'm not going to worry about doing all sides because the frame piece will be holding some of this in place, but I will put a little bit in the center. So again, do my tabs. And just place it so it's nice and even. Now I'm not going to see the edges on this because it'll be covered with the frame like I said already, but you still want it to be fairly even. Making sure that's opening the right way. Pull the tab off and that's held in place. Now I already cut, if you recall, we stamped the image on that centerpiece that was inside here. So I've already fussy cut it out. So I've got my image and I've got the flowers. And I'm going to stick my frame down, and then that way I'll know the placement of the inside. So for the frame, you could use our, I can't think of the name, the tape strips. The adhesive foam strips if you want, but because it's not a shaker card, it doesn't really matter to have all the sides completely stuck down. So I'm just putting my dimensionals in the corners, and then I like to use the cut dimensionals at an angle. Then I don't have to use quite so many. So I just cut my dimensionals right in half. It's a great way to get best use out of your dimensionals. And I'm just sticking them kind of at an angle on the frame because it's not going to get that squished. If you're worried, you could, as I said, use our adhesive strips, or you could just use more dimensionals around the edges. It's up to you. So peel those off. And the best way to get dimensionals off, if you don't have a nail, is just press in the paper in the center and it makes the edge pop up. So you just press in the center and the edge pops up. That also helps to push it down better. Some people like to put lines on the paper on the back of the dimensionals because being white, sometimes when you take the ends off, you're not sure if you've taken them all off, and then you carry on. You either miss some and stick it down and you don't have sticky areas, or when you're carrying on, you touch it there. I just put it at an angle so I can see the shininess, and so if it's shiny, I know there's no backing on it. That's my little way of telling that I've got them all off. And so this piece should go right to the edges because I made it the same size as the front. So it's best to like choose one corner to start with. Yep. And then work your way to the opposite corner. This was easy to put together when I did my first sample. There we go. Alright, so we've got our nice little frame there. And you could trim it off, like if you have it sticking over the edge if you want, or you can just leave it. And so the center part, I'm just going to decide. I've got these words that I stamped. I was thinking of having them come out the edge there. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to stick that on. But I think that I'm going to have this one further that way and then the flower pot down this side. So with the words, I could either have them completely inside or coming off the edge like I had with the other one. I'm thinking maybe having them off the edge there. And maybe an angle snip. So I'm thinking I might have it go that way. So with that in mind, I'm going to glue the inside and just put some Tombow around the edges. You don't want too much too close to the edge because it will ooze out and that'll make your card sticky. So a little goes a long way when it comes to using the Tombow ink. So I'm going to place this one further that direction. When you're pressing things down like this, if you need a little extra pressure, just get one of your blocks. Use that. And that gives you more even pressure. And leave it there to dry for a bit. But Tombow dries really quickly anyway. So this one here, I'm thinking I'm just going to have it come that way. So I'm going to put a couple mini dimensionals down at the bottom because I know the top might overlap the card. Yeah, that should be fine. So just a couple mini dimensionals there. And a little bit of Tombow on the end that has the words, because that's going to be held onto the edge of the card. And I think I want it to go right like that. So that's covering up the frame a bit, and then I'll just fold it over this way, snip it off. And then I've got my little tulip there. I'm going to put a couple mini dimensionals on the tulip pot to hold it in place. And then I'm just going to pop that over here near the bike. Okay. Now I want to add a bit of bling to it. Now this one I just simply, as I said, I just colored those two. So you could color some of your pearls with the Smoky Slate. Now all our blends come in a light and a dark color. So depending on how dark or light you want it, go ahead and color them. I'll just show you on one of them. I'm not sure if I'm going to use one, but I'll just show you. Using the brush tip, go around the edges. Now this is the light one, and it's not coming out very dark because it is light. So I recommend that you use the dark, but always start with the light just in case. So here you can see, hopefully. But Smoky Slate isn't a very dark gray, so even though I've colored that with the dark gray, it's not coming out that dark compared to the white. But you could use other colors, you could use the white. However, we do have metallic pearls, and you have a gray color and a kind of a goldy bronze color. So you could use that. However, in the new Christmas mini catalog, we have these subtle shimmer sequins. And I thought I might try to use some of those in this one. So there they are. They're different size sequins. Some are white, some are gray, some shine. Let's see if I can pop some in here. Different sizes. Oh. And there we go. So as you can see, we've got grays, whites, silvers, shimmery, all kinds of different ones. So I'm actually going to try to pick out a few of those to stick on this one. And you can use glue to stick them down, or you can use glue dots. And I've got a glue dot strip. This is left over from a kit. When you buy kits, quite often you get little mini glue dot strips. And I'm just trying to peel off paper. Or you can use a regular glue dots, which are quite large. So I'm just going to use my picker tool, grab the back of that paper, and stick it on a sequin. Try to. Oh, that didn't work. There we go. So I'm going to pop that onto one of these gray sequins. And then pop that into my design somewhere. So you could just leave it plain because we are just going with the monochrome color. But I'm going to use some of these sequins. So I just think I might just pop a few around. The other option is just put a couple dots here and there. So maybe a dot there. Dot over here, just a tiny dot of glue, and then you can just stick the sequins right onto the glue. There's some really tiny gray ones here. Okay, so that's just going to give a little bit of bling to my card. I don't want too much shimmer, I just want the gray ones, so. These sequins are good if you're doing like a shimmering shaker card. And I think I'll just leave that as is, just a few of those is sufficient. Because I'm trying to go for more of a subtle look. Okay, so there we go. So I can't thank you enough. And that's the monochrome in the Smoky Slate. And then we also have the monochrome one using the soft suede. Okay, so I'd love to know which is your favorite. Leave a message in the comments. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and as well as I will be posting all the products I used in this video in the description. So if you want to purchase any, contact your Stampin' Up demonstrator in the country that you live. If you live in New Zealand and don't already have a demonstrator, I'd love to be yours. So you can contact me. I'm at michellekritchley.stampinup.net. I also have a blog that I put more details about projects on there. And you can subscribe to see more of my videos. Plus, click on the links below to go have a look at the other Global Monthly videos that are in this month's hop for the monochrome technique. I certainly hope you enjoyed that. And remember, if you want to get the stamp set, it's only available with free when you purchase a certain amount until the end of September. So make sure you contact your demonstrator to find out more about that. Thanks so much for watching and have a lovely day. Bye!